Okay, we are live.
So good evening. We don't have an official quorum tonight, but we can still discuss the agenda. We just can't make any formal decisions. But I think that enough time has passed that we needed to go ahead and meet for tonight to discuss where we were or where we are and answer any questions that the use tax committee has. So our very first thing is on our agenda is to go over the fiscal year 2024 year-to-date use tax revenue and expenditure report. Mm-hmm. This is for the 7 months ended October 31st, 2023. In this very first column, this is just the actual, what has actually come in for revenues and then expenditures. The middle column is the actual current budget as amended for this year. And then you can see the third column is the amount under or over budget. Use tax receipts, so far we have brought in through October 31st, $823,866.03. What was budgeted was a conservative number of $720,000. So we've exceeded that. And then we still have 5 months left to go. So use tax is definitely looking good. I did ask Kathy, she's our finance director, to look into to see. So sometimes use tax revenue isn't very stable. It's not like sales tax revenue. If we're having any special projects, construction projects, things being built in the city, we can kind of have a windfalls and pockets of use tax money that are going to be one-time revenue. They wouldn't be recurring. Of course, with online sales, it becomes a little bit more stable than it used to be. But she was going to take a look and see if she could find any big one-time windfalls. And did you have time to do that?
No, I haven't looked at that specifically for this project.
So that's something we're looking into so that we can budget appropriately for next year's projection. If there's a big windfall that we're not going to get next year, we don't want to over project the money, if that makes sense. Then we have a little bit of interest earnings from money, and that fund balance amount, that is actually the money that we started within the use tax fund, the cash balance on April 1st of our fiscal year. And so that is money that was carried over from last year that hadn't been spent, even though some of it was encumbered for other projects, if that makes sense. So that is just our cash balance to show us here's how much cash we started the year with, so that we can make sure that we aren't planning or budgeting for deficit spending, if that makes sense. Do you guys have any questions on any of these revenues?
I have one for Kathy. Tell me what a big windfall is. Are you saying that maybe we had excessive use tax online and we didn't anticipate it, that you would consider that a big windfall of money we didn't anticipate, time of year?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we've only got really like 1 year's worth of data. So if we had 10 or 20 years, we might be able to do a better projection. But for windfall, certain activities, so when you pay use tax, you may have invested in, you're building a new building and you're shipping a bunch of equipment into your building. Maybe you're putting in a new pipeline through a county or through a city. So it's a construction project where somebody ships in equipment, which is very expensive, but it only happens one time. So it's like they're making a large purchase.
Okay.
And if we had 10 years of data and 1 year, it was significantly higher, we probably could say, oh, there must have been something unique about that, and start drilling down to try to determine where and when that happened. With it just being 1 year, we're gonna try to look through all the months and all the businesses, the information that we can get. A lot of it's confidential, but we can get some information and try to determine if there was something that happened that was unusual. So it gives us an idea if we can expect this again next year or a little less.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about revenues? The good news is we've already hit our budgeted revenue, our anticipated revenues in only 7 months in, so into the fiscal year. So we know that all the additional receipts for this year will be above and over budget and what was expected. Then for expenditures, we have the administrative fee that is going to pay the general fund back for its expenses for writing checks, doing the accounting and such. Then also managing the projects, the construction projects. We have a transfer to the Sidewalk and Trails Fund. That is all 100% for the trail project, the Mac Porter Connector Trail project. We had budgeted to give that fund $199,740 towards engineering of that trail. The pickleball complex, that project is actually complete. We had budgeted $744,621 in this year's budget, and we have only spent $618,211.76, but there should be no more expenses. The transfer to park construction, that was just, we sent that money to put it aside for the grant match that we hope to receive for Hall Park. And we went ahead and transferred all that money to that fund. So it is sitting there ready to go if and when we get notification that we receive that grant. The public safety, we have hired both officers that were promised to citizens with the use tax. And so this is their salary and benefits for 2 officers. And you can see that we've expended 51.94%. Don't think we hired that second officer until after the beginning of the year. The first one was hired prior to the beginning of this year. We have an animal control officer. Her salary is being transferred back to the general fund where she is paid for her salary and benefits. And then we have principal and interest payments on that pickleball complex debt. So I don't know if you guys have any questions on any of the
I
expenditures.
have one for Eric.
Sure.
So have we heard back on the grant that we applied? Because the last conversation we had, we were talking about July last year, and then they said they postponed it because I forget what the variables were. Whoever does the grants wasn't available, or what the issue was. Have we heard anything?
We have heard from Jeff City that they are almost 2 years behind on their awards of grant through Omaha at the national level. I can say that they had us do one more step as far as the cultural survey to see if there was any archaeological remnants from the Osage Indian tribe, and if they would have found something, the project would have been disregarded. But we got that back as of today. Ryan and I looked at that, and we're all good. So we forwarded that on to Jeff City, to Patty, and so we'll wait, and that's good news for us, but we are still waiting, and they said we probably wouldn't hear anything at all from Nebraska until January or February at the earliest.
2024.
2024.
Okay.
Absolutely. They're short-staffed and just way behind schedule. So we're just waiting to hear if we as soon as we hear something, we'll let Sheila know, obviously, and hopefully it's the good news we hear.
So I don't understand, what did you have to prove? That it wasn't a burial ground
Correct.
at any kind?
Of any
At any time?
At
Okay.
any time.
Didn't realize that, that's.
Yeah, and luckily, we didn't have to do that when we received the grant down at Lions Park, but it's a different area, they thought, even though it's in the city limits. It's
Right.
just something that,
And a house used to sit on that property.
right, right.
Okay.
Which doesn't matter, this is way back when, and if there's anything there, and we had to have a certified, and it came from Missouri State University that did that survey for us. And we had to forward that on to Jeff City once we received that information.
And what did that cost the city to do?
About $4,750,
Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna be free.
something of that nature.
Does that come out of our fund here, or is it a
That
city
will
pays?
come out of that, the Hall Park fund that we have.
Okay, and it was
for-
$4,700.
Mhm.
And so what it could do is it will count towards our match.
Yes,
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
thank you, Sheila.
So
No, that's
now,
okay.
now Jeff City has that in hand, that they know that it's
As of
been
today,
certified that it is not any kind of burial ground.
as of today,
Yeah.
absolutely.
If I can interject, they wouldn't be asking us for that if it was a no-go for sure on the grant. So we feel good about the grant as of right now.
But you said they're 2 years behind, is that correct?
Yeah.
On awarding the money?
We're realistically, we're expecting to hear probably spring.
And they say January, February.
That
It's
means-
more like
Yeah.
May or June.
Yeah,
Well, if they say all that, well, the only reason I'm asking is
Sure.
we have a healthy amount of money sitting here that, I mean, we've got $2,000 in interest, but if we have $500,000 that we can put into some kind of security or investment like CD or something of the sort, I mean, it just, we know it's going to be tied up for the next 6 months at minimum,
Right,
tied up for a year with a really nice interest rate as they are right now. And then we have less of a, I don't know though, necessarily legal requirements of
Right,
fund
that's what I was
balances
thinking.
within the government,
I
you know.
can interject if that's okay, Sheila. So we are working on the interest calculation for this fund, so the balance has been growing and accruing. And the current rate that we receive, the money that our money is currently at Kearney Trust, and the current rate that we receive there, I want to say it's 5.36%, somewhere around there, 5.25%. So we found that to be a very aggressive rate. So in the next meeting, you'll see a restatement of your interest, which will show a larger amount.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rate that we're getting is great, but by all means, you're right.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if the rate through Kearney Trust is, 5%, I'm sure it's gonna be tough to find something that's
Yeah.
better than that without going into like a, some kind of,
Even the long-term
Security,
ones are much less, yeah.
so, but yeah, I'm just trying to think of like, we know that we've earmarked these funds, but if we let them sit there
Sitting idle.
and gain interest on them and then use that to go towards the project, it just means that we have more of a blanket in case something falls through with the grant or if there's unforeseen costs in the project, which, shocker, I'm sure that's never happened before, but. I did have a question though on the.
Also, like the rules for investing in public funds,
Mhm.
safety first, that has to be utmost. Then liquidity, so in case we have to pull it out, if they want to make sure that we keep it very liquid, and then yield is always the third requirement.
Yep.
But yes, we are able to invest public funds, and we do.
Cool. I did have a question on the public safety because it looks like we're on track roughly 50%, but you said that's with a delay in hiring the second officer. So I'm assuming we're projecting to go over budget in this area probably. And
We probably won't for this year, so we'll probably recalculate.
Okay.
So, one of our officers that we hired had more experience. And so when we budgeted for entry-level officers with just fresh out of the academy.
okay.
I was good. Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was going to ask a question. You can finish your explanation, then I can go.
Okay, I don't believe that we'll be over budget this fiscal year, though.
Okay.
Which is May, right?
March
Oh,
31.
April,
March
that's right. You said
31 is
April
the
starts.
end, yep.
Okay.
Okay, so one of my questions was with the actual revenues being higher than expected this year, and like with the hall project kind of on a delay, can we like expedite the sidewalk and trails? Like, can we push that faster or further to do so that we get stuff done with this money this year?
So can we talk about that when we talk about projects? What we want to do is we need, the Mac Porter Connector Trail grant, or Connector Trail project, we actually received TAP funds from the from the federal government, through Mark. We have to have our match ready to go, and it's a reimbursement grant. So we will be paying costs, and then we will be applying for reimbursement through Mark and the state of Missouri and getting funds that way. So we are still trying to reach that goal to make sure that we have enough money for our match, because we are committed to spending that money. So once we get the money for our matching grants, then we'll be able to start funding other projects. Does that make sense?
What's our match that we're trying to hit?
So we have, first of all, we're expecting and I'm looking at page 1, just so you guys have it, under the Route 33 Trail Project, which I named it Route 33 Trail Project, but I keep referring to it tonight as the Mac Porter Connector Trail. So just so you guys know, I should be using the same name, but I'm using 2 different names. Because we call them both here. And so we have anticipated $267,700 that the city 100% has to fund for engineering and design. The grant that we received is only for construction. So first we need to do that engineering and design. We actually have an RFQ that is outstanding right now. We are waiting, we issued it on November 22nd, and it closes on December 14th. And we are hoping for lots of engineers to have responded to that. On December 14th, we will do an evaluation process to pick the most qualified engineer that submits a proposal and figure out, then we will know how much the $267,700 for engineering, that is our estimate. It could be less than that, it could be more than that. So once we know, after December 14th, when we know the cost, we'll have one more piece of that puzzle. We are estimating that the total construction costs, which we won't know that until the engineering is done and then it's bid. We're estimating that the total construction costs are $850,000. And we know that we have received a grant for up to 80% of that. Maybe our costs will go more. We will not receive more than $680,000. And we could receive less than $680,000 if the construction cost is less than the $850,000. So what we're trying to do is, I'm trying to make sure that we have $437,700 more to make sure that we can fulfill our obligation that we committed to when we accepted that grant.
Which it appears we have.
It appears we have.
I mean,
It appears we will have by soon next year. Possibly, we could even have it by the end of this year, if use tax receipts continue coming in as they have.
well, I guess, I kind of think of it too as like, no, I know we show like the 996,677, but I automatically take out, we've said like part of this tax was for the Hall Park project, so I automatically deduct the 504,000, so, but I mean, still, even with that deducted, I feel like we're pretty darn close to what we need to cover that obligation.
And the real question I have, because I heard this at a prior meeting, and I heard it from you, Marie, like, you're like, well, what happens if we don't get the grant? We still really need to do this project.
Yes.
And so, once we hear a yay or a nay, then maybe all of the additional funds will be going to that Hall Park project. So Mary Kate, great question, and if we start spending that cash, we might not have it when we need to do a commitment, so.
Well, we know for sure we're committed to the trail project as well as Hall Park. That's why I was asking about the investment deal earlier. In case of
Yes.
a grant fall through, we would have, we would be earning money, so that way we could still forge forward with potentially just funding it ourselves.
Yes.
But
Does that make sense, Mary Kate? Yes, okay.
I do have a question there, Sheila.
Yes.
Okay, so just like Mary Kate says, could we start the, as you call it, the Mac Porter Trail? And we're waiting for our grant. Is it possible that we could have two projects going at the same time? Could we start getting our grant money in? We could start use tax, things start happening. Is it possible, or do they have to stay in order? Like the grant is approved, we get it in May, we get started on the hall, and then we don't do anything else as far as the Mac Porter until we finish the Hall Park. I mean,
We
does
will
that
be
happen?
able to do, I fully anticipate that we'll be able to do Hall Park and the Mac Porter Connector Trail
Okay,
simultaneously
Okay.
at the same time. Yes, and then, but extending further to say, okay, let's get engineering and design done for a sidewalk, an alternative or an additional sidewalk project. That starts to make me feel a little bit nervous.
right.
Be
That's
very
why I was
ambitious.
asking, like, do you start juggling all the balls, or do you try to concentrate on one project at a time?
Not one at a time,
Okay,
but definitely making sure that we have our commitments that we have committed to. It looks really bad for a municipality to accept a grant, especially when there was a competition with other municipalities, and then have to back out of that.
right. Or don't start the project and you're holding off.
Yes, it does. It looks
Right,
it looks bad if you're awarded a grant and then you don't follow through with that commitment.
right.
It diminishes your chances greatly for receiving federal funds in future.
And that's where I was
years.
going with that, like, are you gonna do two at the same time, or what order are you gonna do that?
I am super excited with how use tax is performing this year, and even the mayor asked a few months ago, and even then I'm pretty conservative. And I told him today on the phone, before this meeting, I said, okay, I'm just gonna say you were right about use tax. So he's much more optimistic than I was.
We're gonna write that down, right?
He'll be happy about that. He'll be happy it's captured on YouTube.
Okay,
So we do still have some unfunded amounts. However, I think it looked to me when I was preparing this report for you guys that we might have both of these projects completely funded by the end of this fiscal year,
that'd be nice.
or at least very close. And then we do have the continuing commitment of salary and benefits for 3 employees. We also have the debt service for the pickleball project. So those are always going to have to be accounted for every single year first. And then we also have the issue of down the road, we have a 1% sales tax that citizens voted and approved to pay the debt service for the highway or for the interchange. And so our use tax is always the same amount as our sales tax. That sales tax expires in the future. My guess is that the Board of Aldermen would ask voters to approve a continuation of that sales tax. However, if it expires, that will significantly affect by a third use tax receipts.
But that goes out for a number of years though, doesn't it?
About 10, maybe 12.
Okay.
I didn't remember that. Thank you, Larry. Didn't remember that.
It's
tax
just
was
something
out.
that I want us to
Keep in
keep
mind.
in mind.
Yes.
You know,
Well, by then, the bond for the pool have already been approved and.
maybe. And that's that's something else to take note of. If voters in April approve the half-cent park sales tax,
Mhm.
that also increases the amount of use tax receipts
Yes.
that will be received. It is interesting how there are unintended, things that happen, but it's all good information to have in mind.
Yes. Okay.
And then so the pickleball and skate park complex project, wonderful project and completed. And it definitely received the MML Innovation Award.
Yes.
And we just received we're getting ready to receive the Keystone Award, Special Recognition Award.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thanks.
what a great project.
Yeah.
We're very proud of it.
Yes, we are.
I understand.
And it came in almost $120,000 over, under budget.
Yeah.
So that's great.
I was going to ask a question with that. So I was looking back over some notes and like the engineering SketchUp from that. And I noticed and I remembered there being a lot more trees and bushes planted around it. So when I saw here, it was like completed. I was just wondering, has that been changed without, yeah? Or is that going to come this spring?
I can answer that question, and we anticipate planting some trees in the springtime. The reason why we took those trees out with the culvert right next when we had to put riprap and things like that for the water, some of those trees were in the area that we knew would not survive. So we are going to be planting some trees this spring and a lot of bushes up closer to the pickleball court area. But what they wanted to charge us to what we know we can get a better deal with the contractor and the upcharge of that. We pulled that money out because we know we can save money in the long run down the road and do it ourselves.
Nice.
So it's not going, so you've pulled the money out, so it's going to be paid for through the use tax, but it's just going kind of through like a different department?
It's going to be paid for out of the park fund.
Correct.
It's going to be out of the park fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that where that extra money went, that 147,000?
No.
Did you say, or?
Oh, the 119,000?
15,000, yeah.
No, that $119,000 stays in the use tax fund
Okay, good.
to be used for other use tax
Okay.
projects.
Keep
What would
that in mind.
do you guys have any kind of estimate on what ongoing maintenance and stuff on the pickleball courts would be? Because that's one thing that I think of as, we shouldn't just expend a ton of money through the use tax and then forget about forward planning on maintenance, stuff like that. Like if it's healthy and we can somehow earmark this now or get it, on the table of discussion for budget time next year. Like, I mean, same thing with the sidewalks that we build, like the use tax shouldn't just be for building. I'm assuming we need to earmark some funds for maintenance, of these specific items that is paying for.
So fortunately, maintenance, the real maintenance issue you would have with pickleball is going to be the court surfacing. And correct me if I'm wrong, we have a 3-year guarantee on that surface. Beyond that, we would look to naturally just, generally those things last for about 10 to 15 years, and then we'd have to resurface the core. That being said, I couldn't give you a good estimate right now how much it would be to resurface everything. But, naturally a fraction of what it costs to build it.
But then to tag on what Jake is saying, though, I think what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is that use tax fund, the maintenance for that pickleball court, would that come out of the use tax or would that come out of your parks?
It'd come out of parks.
Parks, okay.
And
Yeah, the use tax
basically-
is just building it, from what I
Okay.
understand.
So-
as far as
That's what I want to
maintaining it,
confirm,
yeah.
that we're just talking about building a use tax is used for.
Another nice thing about our pickleball courts is the programming has been absolutely fantastic. So the revenues from that programming have also.
And that's where I was gonna ask next.
Yeah.
They're paying to use those courts, so that money goes back to the parks.
Our leagues,
So stuff like nets and stuff,
Windscreens.
windscreens, all that stuff will be paid for out of the program.
Okay, and that's where the fees are going that we're charging
Correct.
the people that are playing on the courts, okay.
We anticipate a very big year for pickleball in '24.
because we didn't even have a spring season.
Yeah, right.
We didn't open until the Friday of Memorial.
Right, it was late May.
Yeah, summer and fall leagues.
Pardon me?
Yeah, just summer and fall leagues.
I mean, there's program opportunities are just.
So you think the spring is gonna be a big
Absolutely.
season?
If it's
Yes.
gonna be half as much as the fall, fall was crazy. I played in the
It's gonna
fall
be
league
more than
and
the fall.
it was
I hope you're enjoying them.
Oh yeah, immensely. But the reason I asked is because we were out there one day and I noticed a gentleman, resealing some of the surface creases, stuff like that, where the
So-
courts connect and everything, and it just got me to
That's
thinking
actually
that.
kind of a story in and of itself. But we were not satisfied with the product,
To final approval.
and we just, wouldn't sign off on it until they got it right, and they got it right eventually.
Yeah, we played hardball and said, we're not gonna accept this. And we made them pull it all out and reseal it.
Take, our, as a Parks Department, we take our limited stewardship of the public's money, our little control of it that we have, we take it very seriously, and we knew we only had one shot for this.
Just like it's your own
complex
money.
To wow people.
Right.
I take better
Some
care
other
of
things,
the
and we
public
just
money
did
than I
not
do
sign
my own
off on
money.
it. So,
Yeah, so we're, we wanted a first-class product, and I think we ended up with.
I think you got it.
And so the whole park project, yes, hopefully in the spring, we'll find out that we got the grant and we can
Nice.
start construction soon after that. But even if we found out that we didn't get the grant, I guess the board could try again, but they also might have the opportunity to go ahead and start the construction and using their own money. But we wouldn't be able to, if we were planning on asking for another, like doing a second application, then we wouldn't want to start construction. We have to get the grant before we are,
Right.
it counts toward the match, if that makes sense.
If we don't get the first, if we don't get it the first time around, I mean, what theoretically would be our chances of success with the second application?
Significantly higher.
Okay.
We've talked to them about that. Hey, what happens if we don't get this?
Uh-huh.
And their first thing is reapply immediately. That's, we feel really good about the project right now.
And if you reapply, do they tell you what you need
Yes.
to
Yes.
improve?
They
So they
will
tell you
tell,
how to
yeah.
get more points.
We feel like we have a great application, and we feel really good about the project.
one reason they told us and to apply for the absolute max is the Lions Park project. When they first came and saw it, and after they got it awarded, they were like, this is gonna be a good project. Well, they came down, the Land and Water Conservation people and the National people actually had their yearly retreat, which they had over at the Elms, and they toured different areas. And they actually came over and toured ours and had their lunch and spent it, and they were impressed with that. So Patty said, apply, if you want to apply for another grant, do so while the picking's good and they're happy with your project here. So that's
It's
what
always
we
good
did.
to get FaceTime with the national people too.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
We hope to get that Hall Park grant.
we're optimistic.
And we haven't made the transfer from the use tax fund to that, I'm looking now, it says 0, so.
Right.
As soon as we do, then we'll have that match. And it's not that we don't have the money, it's that when, I think she tried transferring it once and it made the fund go negative. And so we were like, hey, let's transfer that back until there's enough cash in there. So it's probably time to go ahead and do that now. And then the Route 33 trail project, in this year's budget, we were only able to, we thought we were going to only be able to do $199,740 of that $267,700. I am really hopeful that the engineering costs will be less than that. However, engineers are costly, but we need a good engineer to help design a good project. I really like this RFQ that was issued because Shelley, who is our new city engineer, she actually put extra points in for innovation. And so if there's a culvert and we don't necessarily want to take out all of these trees in the initial design. So there was preliminary design work that was done in order to win the grant. And when we recently were able to hire a city engineer, and it has been very helpful, and she is able to look at things and see things because she is on site and very knowledgeable that our external consultants can't necessarily see. So she is awarding extra points for innovation, and hopefully they will be able to design something where we're not losing a lot of trees and we're able to have a better project, hopefully. And it will be a good project no matter what, but it's just exciting to see now that we have an in-house city engineer, how that is kind of changing our projects and how we do things. Very exciting. And then, we already have those TAP funds awarded. So we know that that's a go. So, and I put the map, the very last page of your guys' packet is the map of what was promised to the citizens as far as sidewalk projects. And A is done. And I was not here, do you guys remember, these are all lettered, were they in the order of priority, or was there flexibility?
If I recall, they were just not lettered. And it
Yeah.
wasn't with.
The only priority that people really discussed was the Nation Road.
That was
Connector.
the
That was
big
right.
one.
That was
at the
big
time.
Mhm.
So have you guys given any thought to if we are able to have funds available in next year's budget, like what priority, like what the next priority would be?
So we've completed all these, they're correct, except for the connector to Mac Porter,
Do you mean on the first page or do you mean on the
last page, all that we have.
I don't believe so. I don't think B has been done. I don't think C has been done. D is the Mac border, that's
The Mac
going to
border
be,
connectors.
I guess, done next,
Mhm.
or at least concurrently with,
But A is done, the Nation
A
Road.
is done.
Yeah,
E, I don't believe has been done. I don't believe any of these have been done other than A, and then we have a grant for D.
Right.
And if you guys were gonna talk about prioritizing, like, what information do you need from us? What do you need from us to kind of go through a prioritization?
Mary Kate, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I was just agreeing that no, a lot of them had not been done. So yes, what kind of information do we need? Well, one of the things that worries me is, well, the connections by all the elementary schools that are not done. Like those crosswalks and the lighting up things and finishing those, that would be a priority to me. Any project near the schools.
I would agree with that. So like G, H, L,
Mm-hmm.
J, those would be at the forefront.
Just
I
off the
guess-
top of my head, I'm sure there's a lot more we need to
I
maybe
guess I want to
consider.
get information back from Dave Pavlich, because I know he's worked a lot on this as well. And I'd like to get some feedback for how would he prioritize this, in as much as projects that have been started and they're stopped, and what would be quicker. I guess I'd like some feedback from him, because that's his area.
He is home with sick kiddos.
Oh, that's no fun.
But
Yeah, and also
typically he would be at
The
this.
C one, the Regency Drive thing, I think because of keeping the kids out of the street and
Yes.
What other questions or comments do you guys have?
So the Nation Road connection, I can't recall, what was our all-in cost there for that connection, that sidewalk? Or I guess rough estimate.
I
Where we
might be able
landed.
to tell you that quickly if I go grab the budget book. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like, that would give us an estimate of some of these other ones potentially, to figure out what we can do in a year.
So it looks like $104,500.
Okay.
So maybe you guys can think about it a little bit. We'll get additional input
Okay.
from David Pavlich. And then you guys can kind of talk about it more at your next meeting. You guys can't actually make any decisions since we don't have a quorum. And hopefully the next meeting that we schedule, we'll be able to actually get a quorum.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think the connections around the high school and the elementaries and stuff like that would be prioritized over. And then right after that, would be the Regency connection, and then work down the list from there. So.
Do you guys want to talk about when you might want to meet next?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see, so what, every quarter? I guess year end's March, so we would definitely want to, like, early April, or how long does it take for you to close down your books and get your reporting in order? Because the last thing that I want to do is try and schedule a meeting to where you are not only dealing with your year end and auditors, but at the same time, you're dealing with trying to get our stuff done.
I would think for this, it shouldn't take very long to prepare your use tax, what's happened in the use tax fund.
We would do a budget, the board would do their budget amendment at probably the second meeting in April, maybe the first meeting in May, to have that final carryover number. So the budget always includes an estimated carryover amount, and then you true it up once the year is done and you know what cash you actually have, what project expenses just didn't get paid out and need to be carried over to the next year. So would you like to maybe try to meet in May? In mid to late May? Would that be good? And maybe we will already know about the
Grant, that'd be nice.
grant.
That would be real nice.
That way we have information for you in case it did come in.
And I'd like the information even if you heard sooner.
To
Than
send
later.
it out to you guys to
Yeah,
let
that
you
would be
know?
nice. That
So
would
if
be
we
nice.
leave, yeah, if we meet in May though, that'll be potentially after any kind of budget inputs would be net required. We would need to, if we wanted to do a meeting around that, it would have to be sometime in the February, March timeframe, wouldn't it? To discuss what the go-forward budget would be for next year.
So it might be that the Board of Aldermen would possibly consider just if there was money, putting it towards sidewalk construction without, and possibly say, okay, we could defer that, like which project would go first. But just knowing that your guys' priorities are, like if you were doing a prioritization or the crosswalks by the schools, we would communicate that information to the Board of Aldermen and let them know, and so that they would know what projects were going to go. You might have already probably spent all your money with that decision, or, you know, that ask.
Yeah. And then potentially when initial budgets and stuff like that are shareable, could I trouble you to send the initial projections over to us, just so I can take a look at it, you know, before everything?
Yes, and you get a copy of the
Right, yeah.
agenda packet.
Mhm.
It will be in an agenda twice for your viewing pleasure.
Perfect.
When that goes to the board, and then also when they adopt it. So they'll have a work session, a budget work session, because you are getting the notification of the Board of Aldermen meetings. You will get that information when it gets sent out, the
Okay.
meeting posted. It will be a nice, big, thick packet for you.
Cool.
And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna
because I
bug you
love
every
that
single time I
stuff.
get the email, be like, is this, which page do I need to look at? I've looked at some of those, I'm like, wow, like, that meeting's gotta go all night. So,
Well, let's see, election is up again, so you could run for office and then you could see the budget for real. Figure
I don't
out
need
how it
that in my
runs.
life.
Was it closed December the what?
December 26th at 5 PM. So, would you guys like to meet in March, or would you like to meet in May?
I'm either or, I don't know what the advantage is to meeting in March rather than May or vice versa. I mean, we'd know more, I feel, in May, whereas March should just be redundant, maybe same order.
Well, there could be a chance you would know about the grant.
Yeah, good
But-
chance.
I think our goal was every quarter.
Okay.
So while I do like May, I just have a feeling like May is almost half a year away. I would say potentially mid to late March, we
I
Might
have no
have to have a
preference,
meeting.
whichever the majority wants to.
just so we can, because we did strive to say we need to meet at least once a quarter.
And it gives us some feel on the use tax revenue.
Yeah, to stay
So,
informed, and then we'll know, we'll be pretty close to the,
Mary Kate,
End of
did
the
you
year.
have any input?
I think March would be great. I agree with that. And especially if we want to be discussing these different and hopefully voting on which sidewalk issues to kind of be pushing toward the front. Yeah, March.
Would March 26th be okay? And I was wondering if you guys might want to meet earlier than 6:30? Or if 6:30 works for you guys.
Well, I'm retired, so it don't make no difference.
Me
Jay?
too.
I'm trying to think. The only thing is I work in downtown Kansas City, so driving back, I mean, I could make 6 work potentially, or maybe even 5:30. So as long as that doesn't impede with anything going on here, so.
No,
Mary Kate, what about you?
Yep, I can make whatever time work. Yeah.
The 26th at 5:30?
Okay, let's plan on that. 5:30 PM on March 26th, the next use tax meeting. Okay,
is that still a Tuesday night?
that is a Tuesday night.
Okay.
Does Tuesday work for everyone? I mean, it works for at least half of you. And we
Yeah.
really need at least one more.
Yes.
So hopefully that will work with everybody. And I'm gonna try to go ahead and send out an email before the end of this week to everyone to go ahead and get it on their calendar to hopefully
Good.
make it a better chance of.
When's spring break? That'll be the next excuse. Well, that's spring break.
It's in
Spring break is that week. Spring break is the week of March 20th.
So then everyone will make it for sure because they'll have been home with their kids all day. And they'll say, I have
No, I was
to
thinking
make
they'd be
this
on
meeting.
trips, they'd be on vacation.
Oh, that is true, yeah.
Yeah, it's spring break, we're going on
But
vacation.
we will make it, give them the ability to zoom in. So
Okay.
maybe that will encourage them, I don't know.
Can't hurt.
And if we get feedback, maybe we could switch it to either, I know that March 5th is a Tuesday in March, so it would be earlier. I just know that we won't have that last use tax number on March 26th, even though we won't have the end of year financials, we'll at least be able to tell you what the final use tax receipts
Right.
are for the year.
I'll just write that down as potential for the 5th, because I mean, I would be open to that too. Even if we don't have that final number, we still have 11 out of the 12 months. so
Sure.
a lot clearer picture.
Great. Do you guys want to, I put on this agenda committee member comments, if you guys have any comments, questions, whatever. Awesome. Well, you guys, thank you so much for
You're welcome, thank
your
you.
service.